In the next 8 minutes, I will show you how the color palette can be set up as a control panel to instantly change the color palette of an entire animation. No coding required. Oh, and there's a bonus chapter. Alright, I have 2 animations here from a datagrams project where we used changing colors quite a lot. And both these scenes were colored with the color links. And if you can look at that here in the composition, you can see that every color property has this expression link that links to the palette datagrams. So that means that if I go into the color palette and start changing the order of the colors, automatically the colors in my animation should change. And in order to see that better, I prepared this timer map comp so that we can see the animation change over time. So I'm going to quickly make the color palette a little bigger, 2000. And then this goes right next to the color palette. So when I take the blue color that's represented by number 2 and make that number 4, all the colors that were colored with number 4 are going to be blue now instead of purple. And then all the colors that were colored with number 2 are going to be pink. Now that's just one color palette, but I want to be able to color with more color palettes and be able to really quickly swap these out just as easy as just changing these color controls. So for that, I prepared a couple of other color palettes here in Illustrator, and I put them on separate layers. Now I'm going to import that in Assets. So I'm going to import color controls, and I want to make sure that this is set to composition because then the layers that I created in Illustrator will be preserved. So I want to create color palettes from these layers, but if I try that on an Illustrator file, it doesn't really work because there are no color properties on this layer. So I want to convert these to vector layers first, because that will convert them into After Effects shape layers that actually have color properties. Okay, so once I've done that, I can throw away the Illustrator files and I can start to create a color palette from these layers. So this is color palette 1, this is color palette 2, color palette 3. So now that I have 3 new color palettes here, I can just get rid of these files here to clean up my project. And then I want to start adding these color palettes to the existing color palette datagrams. So I'm going to go in here and paste that layer in here. You can already see, because this became the first layer of this color palette, that the animation has now taken on these colors. So I'm just going to copy these other color palettes in here too. Paste, and then color palette 3, copy, and paste. Now since that's done, I can just get rid of these 3 color palettes because I don't need them anymore because I just copied them in here. And I also want to get rid of these markers for a bit. I can do that really quickly by holding Command and then clicking. Now as we've discovered, the color palette that is on top will become the main color palette for this animation. But I can't really see the other color palettes here. So what I want to do is I want to offset them on the Y position so that I can just see them in the same order as my layers are. And for that, I can show you a quick expression trick. We're going to open up position because we want to offset the Y position. And we're going to quickly separate these position properties because we only need the Y position. So I'm going to use the layer number to offset the color palettes on the Y position. And I can do that with this expression called index. So I can hold Option and then click on the stopwatch. Then I can start to type index. And if I take this position property and copy and paste it to the rest of the layers, I can see that the Y position is the same as the layer number. So this is great because I can use this to offset the layers over the Y axis. The only problem is that the offset needs to be bigger, so I want to know how tall this layer is, and I can just quickly measure that. It seems like it's 100 pixels high, so I want to make that maybe 120 so there's a little bit of space between them. So I'm going to say index times 120. And then I'm going to copy this and then paste that on the rest. And now you can see that they're nicely arranged. The only weird thing is that there's no color palette on the top, and it's because our first color palette has the Y position of 120. So in order to make the first one show up at the top, I have to subtract 1 from the layer number. I could just go in here, index minus 1. And I also want to make sure that that's between brackets so that this section becomes its own calculation. and then it's multiplied by 120. So you can already see this one jump up there. So I'm going to copy the Y position and then paste it on the rest. Great, so now I've built this control panel where I can select any color palette, move it to the top, and then that will become my main color palette. But now these two animations look the same and they have the same color palette and the same background. And I would like to be able to switch that up. So we're going to offset one of these animations so that instead of grabbing color 1, it will actually grab color 2. And instead of color 2, it will actually grab color 3. So in order to set that up, I'm going to go into the unforced error comp. And in here, I'm going to create a new null layer and call that offset. Put that to the top. And then I'm also going to drag a slider control on that layer and call that offset as well. Now, the idea is that this value here will become the value that's going to offset the colors so that color 1 is actually color 2 and the color 2 is actually color 3, etc. Now, in order for this slider to work, we need a different expression link in every color property. And if you open up this triangle, you could see that the link that we've been using is just the standard link, it's color. But there's another advanced expression that's called offset that you can download in the description of this video. And you can install it in this folder here. You can just drag that file in here. And then if you close Radionemic Color and you open it again, it will show up in your advanced expression drop-down list. So we need to swap this normal link out for this special link that's offset, and that will make this slider work. What I want to do is I select datagrams, the color palette, I have offset selected, and then I want to select all the layers that this needs to apply to. And then I'm going to relink these layers to the color palette, but under these conditions rather than the default colors. Okay, so once that's done, you can now actually see that the color link has changed from ray color to ray offset. And if we go to this offset layer now and change the value, you can see that we can offset the colors in our comp. Now make sure that when you're using this special offset link, that you do have a layer in your comp called offset with an effect on there called offset, because otherwise this trick won't work. So the control for the offset is currently in this composition, but if you want to have it in the color palette composition, you could double click this slider and then go to the color palette and create a null layer here, call that offset, and then create the slider again. Call that offset for the second animation, B. Also notice that because this is the first layer now, all the colors are lost. So you have to make sure that the layer is at the bottom. And then I can lock this effects panel and then go back here and then make sure that I link this property to this controller. And now when I'm in my color palette, I can use this to offset my colors with. Now, this is a very quick way to change the colors in your scene, which would normally require a lot of coding. Now, if you are interested in a little bit of JavaScript expression coding, I'll make this tutorial a little bit longer and explain how I turned the default color expression into the advanced offset expression. So these advanced expressions are just JavaScript files, and they're saved in this folder here. So if you click on that, it will open up the folder. And in here, we're just going to get rid of the ray offset expression and make that from scratch. So let's duplicate the first expression here, the normal one. And we're going to call that ray offset. So it's important if you're making these expressions that you keep ray in the name. So that way, Radionemic Color understands that this is an advanced expression. So let's open this up. And the first thing that I want to do is rename this expression to be ray offset. So this expression is really just an address. It's an address so that this color property knows where to go in the color palette. So in this case, we have a couple variables. We have the color palette comp, and we have what specific swatch number we want to look at. So in the case of this example, we have the comp is datagrams, and then what swatch number, it's swatch number 1. So this is really the address line over here. So we're saying ray color palette, which is datagrams, it's this comp. And then we say layer 1, which is this layer. And then we say 4, which represents the effects property group. And then we're calling the number that we had in the color property, which is 1, which shows us the first effect. And then we're going to the first property on that effect, which is this one. And then we find color 1. So this is just really an address line for this property to find this color property. Now, if you want to build in an offset, we have to somehow add a number to this variable so that instead of picking color 1, this property will go and pick color 2. So I'm going to make some space here and I'm going to create a new variable called offset. And that offset is going to be the slider that I want to be the offset slider. So in this case, we've chosen to create a layer and then create an effect with the same name. So instead of typing that out, I'm just going to use this pick whip tool real quick. And that will give me this comp, layer, offset, effect, offset, and then the slider. And I'm just going to copy this and paste that right here. I'm going to hit Command Z so I get my expression back. So now I can start to redefine what this variable means. I can say it's ray color swatch plus offset. And then that will make sure that if I type 1 here, we get the color swatch, ray color swatch, which is 1. And then we add the offset to it, which is also 1. And that will make this color property go to the second color in our color palette. Now, this is great until I start to get to the number 4, because 1 plus 4 gives us 5. And there's only 4 colors in our color palette, so we have a problem here. We need to somehow tell this property that if there's a number 5, it should actually go back to number 1. So the first thing that I need to know is how much color properties are actually in this color palette. So I'm going to create a new variable called num colors. I'm going to go to the ray color palette, the first layer, and then to the effects property group. And I'm going to say behind this num properties. So this will get me the number of properties in the effects property group on the first layer in the composition of the color palette. So this variable will give us 4. So in order for this to work, we're going to use the modulo operator. So let's type out our scenario. We can do 1 plus the offset of 4, and then we'll get 5. But if we use the modulo operator, in this program it's called MOD, and we set that to 4, the value of 5 will actually go to the value of 1. If we keep increasing this number to 5, this will go to 2, and then that will go to 3, and as soon as it hits 4, it goes back to 0. So this is what we can use to loop through the numbers of the colors that we want to reference. So I'm just going to put this between brackets so that this will be calculated separately. And then I'm going to type the percentage sign and then the number of colors. The only problem that we have with this, if the total of this is 4, we actually get the value 0. And that's a problem because we don't really have a color that's represented by the number 0. So we need to figure out a way that we can have the modulo operator skip the 0. And we can do that by adding 1 to it. But now we don't really have a true value, because if I don't have any offset and I want my color to be color 1, then I'm going to end up with color 2 because of this plus 1. So in this case, we can subtract 1 before the modulo operator happens, and that will give us 1. And if I type this out for every single offset value, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, you can see here that we get 1, 2, 3, 4, and then it goes back to 1, 2, 3. And that's exactly what we need. So all we need to do in this case is add 1 to the number of colors, and we need to subtract 1 from this equation. Great. And then I'm going to save this and then go back to After Effects, close Radiant Color, select the Datagrams color palette, and then now in this drop-down menu, I should be able to see offset. So I can select that, and then when I color my property with this expression link instead, I should now be able to use the offset control. And there you go. Now, there's one more thing that I would like to tell you about the expressions is that you should build in a safety feature, because if this layer would say disappear, then your expression would crash. And we don't want that to happen, of course. So the way to build in a safety is to use the try statement. And you're basically going to try to do this calculation. And if it doesn't work, you're going to do something else. So it kind of looks like an if statement. So it's try, and then if it catches an error, we're going to do this other thing. So let's wrap that around the piece of code that we just wrote. So try, and then after that, we say catch. Let's copy this little bracket. So if this line fails, we just want it to do random color swatch, because that is only the number that's in the color property. Great, and then I'm just going to copy this last bit in here. And then now when I delete this, the color will remain and it will just do whatever the value is here. I hope you learned something new. If you want to stay up to date on the latest tutorials, make sure you subscribe to this channel. If you have a request for a tutorial, find the link in the description and fill out the form. I would love to hear from you.